First of all, I need to throw a disclaimer out because when I travel and do events like this, I normally bring a translator, but unfortunately my translator got caught at the hotel security, so if you need me to stop and repeat anything I say, believe me, I will not be offended. It's kind of that gray line between where we are in the country, and if we're south of the Mason-Dixon line, my Kentucky, Alabama, Florida accent really kicks in. But if we're north of the Mason-Dixon line, that's when things start to get a little scary. So, with that being said, thank you so much for being a part of this. And my presence here on this stage has everything to do with your profession. So, this is coming from my heart. I'm so grateful for your profession. And I wouldn't be alive if it were not for selfless servants like yourself. So, the most inconvenient truth about life in general is that when it comes to perfection, it's just not possible. And as much as we hate to believe it, we are our own worst enemies. So think about that for a second. Perfection. Inevitably, we know it's not possible. But we live our lives as if it actually were. Now, I'm the only one in the world that thinks I'm capable of perfection. Whereas every single one of you can see, I forgot my socks today. That I sound like a true Southerner. Well, some would say that would be imperfect. And if I met with any one of you all for a considerable amount of time, I'm sure there would be something that I can find. So, perfection, we know, is not possible, but we live our lives in pursuit, and ultimately when we fall short is when we go wrong. So, I'm going to give you just a short insight into my own personal experience, but really this message, it's not about me. It's about what I've learned in the last 10 years in my ultimate failure, which ultimately resulted in a near-death experience, is that I never knew how good life could be on the other side of surgery. So, with that in mind, let me embark on a short trip down memory lane. Because ultimately, the thought that I want to leave you with is that as long as you continue to chase perfection in life, your greatest potential will be paralyzed. As Jim Bob mentioned, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease at 13. And for the next 12 years, I lived my life as if I did not have Crohn's disease. I missed out on the better part of my teenage and college years because I was always scared to get too far from the bathroom. Now, I'll spare you the details because we all know the symptoms of the disease, but surgery was recommended at least 3 times, and I wanted nothing to do with it. What would the world think of me with an ostomy? How would I ever be able to pursue a romantic relationship? How would I ever be able to get married and have a family? Much less continue along the path of life. So it was absolutely out of question. Surgery, not for me. So I continued to suffer. I continued to live my life confined to the bathroom, to the bed, to declining social engagements, because I was choosing the familiar. I traded the potential for what was the creative comforts of my daily routine. And that's a routine that I would not wish on my very worst enemy. So I continued on until that fateful day in March of 2006. I was in Canada traveling with a friend when my large intestine ruptured. And I experienced another stomach ache. But what was new? That had become so common to me, I didn't think anything of it. Except I started to notice that my midsection was continuing to get more and more distended. And then I slipped into a coma. And if it hadn't been for the friend that I was traveling with knocking on my hotel room right next door, I would have died right there in the hospital. I woke up in an emergency room in Aurelia, Canada, to the hands of the general surgeon on call, shaking me awake, saying, "Sir, if we do not operate within 30 seconds, you will become septic." Because at that point, bacteria had flooded my bloodstream. So at that point, I didn't really have the choice. That is, if I wanted to continue this thing called life. So after a 12-year struggle, in my mind, of what perfection was a body intact without an ostomy. In the moment, just for a second, I considered giving up. I thought it'd been a great life, it'd been a good enough life. And I was just tired of suffering. I was tired of the stomach aches. I was tired of running to the bathroom all the time. I just wanted to just have some normalcy in my life. But then, thank goodness, I came to my senses. And I gave authorization for him to proceed, and he went to work over the next 8 hours, removing over 15 gallons of bacteria from my midsection. And after a 6-month recovery, 6 weeks of or so in the ICU, I was able to return from Canada to Nashville, where I continued my recovery at that point. So, pathetic is what I would call my pursuit of perfection. Pitiful was my belief in the possibility. And preposterous was the idea that I could live life without surgical intervention. Again, it's crazy, but I still thought perfection was possible. Even to this extent, my life flashed before my eyes, and I continued to carry my stubborn pride, believing that I could live without surgery. Now that I look back on that experience, this was the very best thing that could have happened to me. Now, I don't surmise that everyone in the room can relate to a near-death experience where perfection is not the pursuit of life, but rather purpose. Because every single one of us was created for an imperfect purpose. And the quicker we learn how to give up our pursuit of perfection, the quicker we can get on with our lives. Because I truly believe that we all were created not just to survive, but to thrive. And I have spent the last 10 years in full pursuit of my passion, which is now turned into my purpose, which is simply encouragement. And you think about that word, all it is giving courage away. Now, my platform for doing that is as a semi-professional triathlete. And I get to travel the world representing sponsors from Keynote to Trek to Powerbar to Blue 70, living a life beyond my wildest dreams. But it took me having to come to rock bottom in a state of complete and total surrender to even get readjusted to find that right path. And over the last 2 years, I hate to say it's taken that long, I have been putting together a book, which I'm now happy to say officially launches on Tuesday. And this book is simply called The Problem with Perfect. So that's my story. That gives you a little insight onto my conviction and where I'm coming from. Because it's all, one thing we all share in this room is that we're all passionate people who have rich, full, and abundant lives that are out there waiting for us to pursue them. So, with that in mind, I'm going to speak along the path to your purpose. And I'm going to use a lot of P's, but that's intentional. Because when I use alliteration, it tends to resonate. So, as you'll notice, there are 6 P's that I have listed on this screen, and I want to take you through these from a practical application standpoint. Because after all, what good is a talk that I give to you this afternoon if you do not know exactly what to do with what you've heard me say? I'm not a motivational speaker, okay? I'm not here to get you fired up and rah-rah and ready to take on the world. I'm here to give you practical application on something that you can put to immediate use, because statistics say the longer you go before hearing something new and not doing anything with it at all, the less likely it will actually mean anything going forward. So I really do want to give you something that you can use. So, with that being said, first of all, you have to decide, and I hope you decide before I finish speaking, that whatever it is that you pretend to be perfect in your life, that you let it go. I died to my perfection on March 30th, 2006. And it wasn't until that day that I could even begin to start living my true purpose in life. June 5th, 2006 is the day that I discovered my potential. Now, potential is what you most desire out of life. So think about what you love to do. Not necessarily what you're paid to do, but what would you do if time or money were no object? Now let me help you here. Some of these skills that we possess might not be so apparent to us on the surface. But what is it that you're really good at that you may take for granted? Maybe you are a fantastic entertainer and you put together dinner parties with relative ease. Perhaps you found a way to turn your garage into a masterful woodworking shop, and you just assume that it's just a hobby, and I don't understand that. There are certain skills that you possess that most of the world has no clue on what to do. Let's give you an example. This morning before I left, my wife and I had twin boys that are 13 weeks old. I am confident, first of all, every mother and father who has kids that are now out of the house, that you are my heroes. I was simply trying to give my one son a kiss after my wife had settled him down and he lost his mind. And I was literally walking out the door and I looked at my wife and I just said, I'm sorry. Just trying to show him that I love him. And, you know, of course, I can't imagine what it took to get him to calm back down again. But mothers, your hearts, they're as good as gold. And my gratitude and appreciation for you, I just never want to pass up a chance to express that gratitude. So potential, think about what you love to do and what you are good at. It doesn't necessarily have to be what you're paid for, but it does have to be what you live for. Potential is the difference between where you are now and where you want to be. And it's absolutely inherent that you discover that sooner rather than later, because life is too short to settle. We are not survivors in this room. We are thrivers. Your potential is what will move you along your path that will ultimately end in your purpose. Now, it's not going to happen for you. It's out there. But you absolutely have to chase it. And you have to chase it with fierce tenacity. So potential, another word here would be discipline. Now, what do we all know about discipline? Not necessarily fun. Discipline is structure, of which is composed of time and space. Think about how you get things done on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. As much of us in the world that call ourselves non-detailed people, some things just have to go on the calendar. Every relationship that has been built is a success not by accident, but there has been time and designated energy that has gone into building that relationship. Again, let me reference our personal situation. My wife and I have been married for 7 years. 7 years and now 13 weeks, we have 2 little terrorists that have taken over our lives. And we have to schedule our time together. You know, I used to hear along the lines in our early wedded days where our friends would have date nights. Like, what's a date night? Why can't you just have a date anytime you want to? Now I understand that. So every Thursday night, we have a lady that comes to our house between 5 and 9, and we can either stay and be mad and bitter and the babies are crying and screaming, or we can go on a date, even if that's just on a walk. So again, this pursuit, it involves structure, and it absolutely has to be based on time and space. We find time to do the things that we love. So this is essentially putting your pursuit to work of what it is that you have identified as your potential. It's out there. You've just got to chase it. Pain. Inevitably, it will come. We all know this. But unfortunately for most of us, we are creatures of habit. We seek comfort and resist pain. Now, the inevitable truth and the inconvenient truth, as I opened with, is that none of us are perfect. And we live in a fallen world where pain and suffering is all around us. Now, as we pursue our purpose, we get to choose what kind of pain that we want to experience. Now, who has ever tried something different? Perhaps it's a new food, perhaps it's a new vacation destination, maybe someone in the room is trying to learn a new language. The minute you decide in the first couple of days you're engaged in this new activity, is it comfortable? You want to quit? These are growing pains, which would be the first type of pain. We know that in order to experience any type of growth from a character standpoint, we have to leave the friendly confines of our comfort zone. Because if we never do anything different, everything will remain the same. We will never do anything differently in life until our pain of same becomes greater than our pain of change. And in order to grow, in order to continue towards this purpose that we were all created for, we're going to experience pain along the way. But I hope that we're all in agreement here that this is the type of pain we would much prefer rather than the pain of regret. The most unimaginable truth that I would ever hope to be uttered at my last day is to hear the words, Bo had so much potential. Because you think about that statement, it's nothing more than wasted talent. Unpursued potential does no one any good. So which pain is it that you are going to choose? Perseverance. Perseverance is the choice that we make while experiencing the pain, that no matter how bad it gets, we are going to continue on. Some days will be better than others. There were moments as I struggled with my Crohn's disease that I would rather have been dead. And that's just the honest truth. I'm not proud to admit that. But thankfully my life was spared. And on the other side of that, the pain I now get to experience in my multi-sport training, the early mornings in the cold water, the long bike rides in the hot sun, and then the runs that just tend to break my bones down in the worst of times. Wow. I'm alive. Now that's just me, but there's something out there that gives you that same feeling of euphoria. And whatever that is, as I've mentioned before, and I'll say again and again, get on with it. Let's do it. Let's chase it. Let's go after it. Because we all know the feeling of perseverance, which naturally leads us to our passion. Isn't it hard to dismiss someone who is filled with passion? I'm doing that right now. I love doing this more than anything in the world because I know each one of you has a story to share, and I wish I had all the time in the world to learn what it is that motivates you, that moves you, that's what's most important to you. Again, my purpose in life is encouragement. And I know that there is undeveloped talent in every single person in this room. And it's just a matter of you making a decision to go after it. Because passion is contagious. Passion is hard to hide. Because when you find your passion, this is when life becomes meaningful. Because now you are living your purpose. And the greatest thing about your purpose is that it's not for you. Your greatest role in life is enhancing the lives of those that are around you. Your spouse, your children, your coworkers, your neighbors. What is it that you possess inside of you right now that you have yet to live out, that you are potentially robbing service of to those that you are closest of? For me, it's doing exactly what I'm doing now in two different regards. The first is through my platform of triathlon racing. In addition to competing, I also educate beginners. And there's nothing more exciting than talking to a first timer. Now this isn't just triathlon. This could be a first-time musician. This could be a first-time culinary student. This could be whatever you're doing for the first time. Because there's something exciting about the unknown, an experience that you've never had before, that just kind of gets your heart beating a little bit faster. You know what I mean? So the first is I use my sport as an example, but the second is doing what I'm doing here. And again, the message is somewhat different, but the same principles apply. Because all I'm doing here is trying to pass on courage to you to start to chase your true purpose in life. And through my experience with Crohn's disease and with now living with an ostomy, I know that it's not perfect. And I'm 36 years old today. But really, I'm 9 years old because I lost the first 25 years to Crohn's disease. Now, that's not time I can ever get back, but that's pain of regret that I didn't take that surgeon's advice the first time surgery was recommended. Now, none of us can make up for lost time, so I'm not going to spend any more time on that. So it's not what has gone before us, it's in what lies ahead, which is where the focus of this message has been. So I would encourage and even challenge each one of you all to develop a personal mission statement. Not that you have to share with the world or speak from a platform. This is just something that I love to do. But that you personally come up with a short statement that you can remember and put it somewhere where you see it on a regular basis. Because my personal mission statement is the fuel that my passion now operates by. And that's simply to encourage others to see change as a blessing and not a burden. The problem with perfect. Now, I cannot take credit for the design of this title. I had a wonderful graphic design partner back in Nashville, but I essentially communicated the premise of the book, and this is what she came up with. And as much as I would love to continue on, I am limited, and I do not want to steal the show from the true heroes, Susan, Ken, Jim Bob, and all of you in this room, is that I'll just mention this website. If you would like to go and visit and learn more about this book, and go deeper on the 6 P's that I mentioned, it's theproblemwithperfect.com. And if you would like a copy of this presentation, as well as the first chapter of my book, Just Because I Love You, theproblemwithperfect.com/UOAA will deliver that right to your email. And then, of course, here is the link on Amazon.com if you wanted to go that way. Again, I'm not here to sell books. I'm here to encourage. And I just want to thank you again for your selfless service to an industry that has essentially saved my life. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart. I would not have a heart to be thankful for if it weren't for you, advocates, surgeons, that have truly given me my path to purpose. Thank you so much.